For anybody who doesn't know, as I put my hair back, for anybody who does not know, I am autistic. I am diagnosed as autistic and have known I was autistic pretty much my entire life. I am also a professional autism advocate. I work with autistic individuals on mentoring, tutoring, social skills, life skills, work skills under things like different organizations, the Connecticut Autism Waiver, privately, but I also speak on autism. I speak to schools, libraries, students, teachers. I speak to a lot of different people about autism and how to understand it, how to build healthy understandings of it. And I talk especially a lot about autistic empowerment. And a lot of the issues that we talk about here are issues that we see and know we need to speak out about. And we are excited if we can have somebody who has been truly affected to tell us what that experience is like. And standing here, it really feels like a fight has come to my front door. Things that I've been talking about for years, fights I didn't even know I was fighting, that are now mainstream conversation, that are now here again. And as somebody who has spent years doing the work, talking about this, learning from other autistic people, I have a lot to say. And I want to start this week by saying just some of it. Okay, getting back to current discussions of autism. The first thing I want to do is discuss two main talking points that are becoming commonplace in our country and in our current mainstream discussion regarding federal administration. Rising diagnosis rates. This is something I have talked about for years. It is actually the main way I open many of my presentations. And the reason I open them with this is because it's really, really useful for understanding how autism is not simple. How the things around it, the ways we understand it, have made it so complicated that to act like we can know exactly what's going on and take the exact right actions is legitimately ridiculous and not realistic, in my opinion. When people talk about rising diagnosis rates, even some people who I believe are fighting a good fight right now, it's very easy to talk about it very matter-of-factly. Actually, this is why it's happening. I know why it's happening. And to be honest, I don't think any of us know exactly why it's happening. Just to give you a little hint, amongst the many reasons autism diagnosis rates are going up is better diagnosis tools. A focus on diagnosing earlier when it's easier to diagnose. Less stigma about getting diagnosed as autistic. Federal funding towards organizations that are diagnosing. And attention on underrepresented groups and making sure they have access to diagnosis. There's government tracking. Since the 90s, we have actually paid attention to diagnosis rates. Obviously, we are still perfecting our ability to recognize those rates with that much recency. There are so many reasons autism diagnosis rates are going up. There's the expansion of the spectrum. The fact that somebody 60 years ago who might not have been diagnosed at all, or even 20 years ago might have been diagnosed with Asperger's, would now be diagnosed with autism. Those are new people getting diagnosed, and it is not for the simple reason that more people have autism. It is important to understand how complex autism is, not just because of inherently what it is, but because we're still so new to it. We've only spent the last 30 years really trying to understand it. We've made a lot of advancements in that time, and those advancements are still showing up in the data. If I can say one thing for sure, I'm not confident any one reason is responsible for rising diagnosis rates. And to attach it to any one reason seems foolhardy. It seems not just like you are following bad science, but that you are ignoring obvious truths that affect the people you are claiming to try to help. When we talk about rising diagnosis rates, the thing that I think is most important to remember is that nobody has those answers. And if they are trying to tell you that they do for sure, why do they want you to believe them on that? What are they trying to accomplish here? And this leads me to the second thing I want to talk about. Opinions on autism. We very rarely take the time to stop and think about autistic individuals' opinions on having autism unless it is put directly in front of our faces. And I am lucky to get to be somebody who puts that directly in front of people and makes them reflect and realize that. But not every autistic person is as gifted as I am when it comes to language, and they should not have to be. People talk about autism empowerment as if it's simple, as if it's expected. But let me tell you something very, very, very clearly. If you think no autistic individual has ever wanted a cure, wanted to be free of having autism, had very complex, difficult positions about how it affects them, you have not talked to enough autistic people. Autistic people have a variety of opinions, and this has to be respected, because the important part here is not that we all love being autistic or that we all don't. It's that you cannot tell us or assume how we feel without hearing it from us directly. And if you haven't heard it from us, you cannot assume you know exactly how we feel. When I say I'm up here and I'm proud to be autistic, I am not speaking for every autistic individual, but I am speaking for many autistic individuals across the spectrum. People who do not want anybody to forget how meaningful this has been for them. The one thing I know for sure is that we cannot assume autistic individuals' perspectives on autism. That trying to address these problems without first addressing our ability to communicate and understand them will only lead to us making decisions for people who have a right to be part of those decisions for themselves. And this all speaks to, in my opinion, an underlying message. Not just the things that are being said, but the way they are being said. It is simple to say that there should be more research on autism. It is very accepted that we should understand where autism is coming from, how it develops, why it is happening. Those things help us understand how to help autistic people effectively. These are conversations that should be had. These are decisions that should be made about moving forward with research. But the ways it's being talked about, the ways we talk about autism as if it's a bad thing, the ways we talk about autism as if it can only be a bad thing for certain people, that is what scares me. Because that is what people internalize as the fact that they shouldn't love being autistic, that they are being told how they should feel about who they are. I spent my entire childhood being told what I was capable of. I've met so many people who assumed they knew what I was capable of, what I could do, and what I was, who I was, based on my symptoms in that moment. And I am tired of these assumptions, not just because I've seen empowered autistic people and how happy and how meaningful it is to them, but because I've seen the process. I have seen autistic people learn to love themselves, learn to be empowered. I have seen that before and after. I have seen how meaningful it is to them and how cruel it is to even try to take that away, even if you're only doing it through ignorance in the way you discuss something that's important to others. I still remember being told that I should feel bad about being autistic, that it made me worse, that it's something that I will struggle with, and maybe I can outrun, but I will always be held back by. And to be blunt, I'm done listening to that. I learned a long time ago that that didn't help me. And even if they wanted to help me, that didn't help me. It's time that people listen to what we are saying about our experiences. And to be blunt, that is not always easy. There are autistic individuals who have difficulties vocalizing how they feel. There are autistic individuals who struggle with communication, who are nonverbal. But if you actually care about us, you will make the effort. Because we do need to discuss the fact that many with autism are affected in different ways, and many have significant struggles that make it more difficult to live the life they want. But again, if you really understand those people, you will try to understand the life they want. One of the most concerning things to me about the way that I've heard the federal government and people in the federal government talk about autism, thank you so much, is the way they talk about them as if they're an economic burden, as if they're a problem for our country, as if the cost of having them around is the problem. This is what I've been told my entire life, just in a new form. That I'm not capable of being what people want from me, what society should expect from me. And this goes beyond me. I am lucky to have skills to live independently in many ways, to live the life I want. But if we're talking about the people who don't, the people who they claim to want to help, we need to not talk about those people as economic burdens. We need to respect them as human beings. Because talking about them like that speaks to this idea, speaks to this attitude that those with autism have nothing to offer society. Those who struggle have less to offer. Like if they can't hold a job and are nonverbal, then all they are the struggles they have. That's all they have to offer. And this is so cruel in my opinion, because I've met autistic people across the spectrum, and what they have to offer to us, to the world, to their communities, to themselves is incredible. To ignore their love, their art, their perspectives, their insights, their skills, their beliefs, is to take away from them the things that they often love most about themselves. The things that make them different, that they do want to love. I have met too many autistic individuals who wanted to love parts of themselves, but have been taught that they shouldn't. The ways that stimming was talked about recently, as if it was listed with a list of significant struggles that would ruin somebody's life and keep them from living their full lives. It's cruel. If you're not willing to see the parts of autistic people that they have to offer, that make them incredible, that make them unique, that make them humans in all the nuance that includes, then I don't think you're really ready to help them. I don't think you know how to help them. And I don't think you're willing to listen enough to learn. So if you don't know how wrong this is, I hope you are ready to hear from us over and over and over again, as many of us who can stand up for our communities. Because if there is anything that I have learned working with autistic individuals across the spectrum, it's that if you don't know us and you don't want to understand us, you'll never be able to help us. Thank you.